evening, everybody. It is Monday, March 16th, and we're at this time on our agenda, we are going to have a public hearing by the Village of Romeo Board of Trustees at 7 o'clock, Romeo Community Center, 361 Morton Street in Romeo, Michigan. The purpose of this hearing is to hear oral or written comments on the amendments to amend the fence ordinance of the Village of Romeo Code of Ordinances in its entirety and replace with an updated ordinance. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on the fence ordinance? All right, well, we're going to close that public hearing. Hearing no comments, we'll move into our regular business. Again, the Board of Trustees regular business meeting, Monday, March 16th, 7 o'clock. I'm going to ask everybody to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, Clerk Trapp.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Fowler? Hart?
Here.
Posnanski? Seidel?
Here.
President Milzahn?
Here. Okay. Perfect. I appreciate everybody's time and attendance at tonight's meeting. We'll try and get through this as timely as possible. In your packet, you have board minutes from our last meeting of February 18th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Okay, motion by Bartholomew.
Support.
Support by Hart. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 6-0. Also in your packet, you have copies of the bills. You have the vendor activity report, which subtotals $26,487.24. And you have the check register report. That amount is $805,787.43. Motion to pay the bills? Motion by Posnanski, support? Support by Edwards. Any discussion?
I do wonder for the third report is we had 3 reports for the bills in there.
These were the only 2 that were on my list. I do actually have that report, if anybody was requesting to see it.
With the printed one?
It was the actual, the distribution
Oh.
by general ledger number. So it has more of the detail. It covers all of these bills. It
Okay.
just has a little bit more of the detail of what GL number that it went to.
Okay.
So if you wanted to pass those down. I'd like to just sort of include that in the emailed packet of information as supporting.
Well, when I made the motion to put these bills into our packet and other things in email, that was included in that motion.
Oh, was it? I apologize then. I did not realize that. I thought we were just including the 2. So that's mine.
You know, the motion, let's change it, but otherwise, that's why I was concerned. I didn't know if it had to do with the new software, if it wasn't.
No, it's just that the amounts are on here as submitted, and that's just the supporting documentation. So I'm sure that you did, and it's, yeah. So there's a copy of it, so I apologize for not having that. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all right, take the roll call, please.
Posnanski?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Seidel?
Yes.
President Milzahn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, at this time we have the approval of the agenda. I have a few changes that I need to make. I'm going to delete the AT&T lease under unfinished business. There was a new discovery that was made in some of the language that was a little more open-ended than I had originally anticipated in regards to the word upgrade and what that meant, what could happen within a 25-year time span. So I had a quick phone call with Brian Monahan. We weren't able to sort of make that determination, so I just suggested to him that we were going to table it until we can actually make sure that we have all of our bases covered and offer that. So if there was anybody who did come to speak on that agenda item, certainly under public comments, you're welcome to address that, or if you'd just like to make sure that Clerk Trapp has your name and address when we do come back with a new proposal or a new draft, I'll make sure that you're notified of that. It'll be your call. So I need to delete item A under unfinished business. And then I need to add under D, new business, a state of emergency resolution.
All right, I'll make a motion to
Can we,
approve.
are you going to change the date at the top? Is that something you have to formally do or no?
It was posted correctly in the window, and it was posted correctly on the website. It was just the
Okay.
packet informations that were wrong.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, removing unfinished AT&T lease, and then adding under new business, number D, or D would be state of emergency resolution.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip over that step?
I think it's second.
Okay, so motion by Hart, support by Poznanski. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Perfect. At this time, we have special presentations. We have with us this evening, Vicki Rad from Macomb Economic Development Corporation. Thank you for taking time and giving us an update on what's going on.
Sure. So I was invited here today to give an update on Ford Motor Company. When Ford made the announcement earlier this year for Macomb County and for the entire Southeast Michigan region, we knew that there would be potential cuts. We know at the end of the day, there were no job losses, but the impact here to the village of Romeo is going to be pretty significant. There is an action plan. We did have a meeting with several of the folks from Ford. Christine helped actually facilitate that meeting with the Ford Land Division as well as their government affairs. And so I thought maybe I could do like a quick recap of that meeting and then some of the strategy at Macomb County Planning and Economic Development that we are currently pursuing, knowing that we've got, really we're looking at like a 3-year window. When that announcement came out, we know that we're seeing that major shift from going from transmissions to EVs, not just in Ford, but some of the other major OEMs. And in this case, we're looking at that shift impacting the Ford Romeo facility. Part of the dialogue that we had with Ford Land, as well as the production supervisor within Ford, is when. It's really important for us to understand the scope and the time frame. We know that there will be a decrease in certain productions, but really what they're predicting is fall or final quarter of 2022, and then that plant will go idle. Our conversations with them is to really prioritize if there is a shift in any decision-making at the Ford level, that they reprioritize this facility for other uses. But we also talked about, suggestions on what we could purposefully do between now and 2022 so that this doesn't completely go offline, as far as being offline on the tax roll as well, offline for your employees. Some of the discussion that took place was actually looking to see if we can get an appraisal on the facility. We were told that is forthcoming. As far as environmentals, which is also really important that we determine, what is the environmental impact or the land that currently sits on. At this time, they cannot do a phase 1 because there is current production, but that is definitely part of their strategy. We requested perhaps maybe the assistance from Ford Land, their urban planning development group, to really make us look at, what does 2.2 million square foot facility look like if we were to repurpose that for a different use. It is currently zoned industrial, which is, when you look at your tax base, that's really important that, maybe perhaps we look at an industrial park, maybe breaking it apart. We do know that facility, built in the 70s, was built in phases, and so potentially could we look at what a sublease would be like? Currently right now in the county, we do get inquiries for some larger industrial footprints. Proximity matters, so having access to the expressway is important, but they're not looking for 2.2 million. So they're looking for, 500 or 200, 300. So would subleasing that be an option? And so those discussions were had. We do know that the employees will be moving to another facility, and so, whatever we can possibly do to keep that base here in Macomb County and keep it in the village of Romeo, we will do. This is not just a county effort. We had the state of Michigan as part of that meeting. They've helped facilitate other deals with other OEMs for repurposing, I would say, like-minded facilities, but this is a pretty large footprint. We are adding this to our strategic development districts within the county, which means that when we are out there talking to site selectors, we're going to be doing some heavy marketing and promotion. The only delay we have at this point is the building isn't vacant. It's currently being utilized. So we also have to respect those employees that work at the facility, that we're not interfering with their day-to-day. And then also respecting the fact that, currently they've got production plans till 2022. And, part of that is just making sure that you guys are all aware. I know we've got a good team, all hands on deck, making sure that building gets repurposed and redeveloped and making it a priority within the county.
One thing I think was mentioned is they might do an earlier sale of part of the property because they use about half of the property there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that can happen while it's even still open?
Right, and so that was part of looking at the phase of development. At one point it was one building and then two and then three. Just, could there be some consolidation in sale? And so that would be an option, but truly we're kind of at the helm of Ford Land Division to help us with those type of decisions. We did talk to them about some of the site selectors that come to us, the RFPs, really keeping that line of communication with them to let them know that right now we have viable users, and if they would work with us to make that an option. Absolutely.
Any other questions? It was, as I indicated, I sort of gave them a little mini update on our last goals and objectives meeting, that it was, a very well-attended and a great first step for us in the village to have a collaborative conversation that would help us look at all possibilities. And I really do appreciate Macomb County stepping up with your presence, with JP's presence, and really sort of helping facilitate some of that, the larger territory
Right.
exploration of what could possibly be brought in and help us on the other end with the marketing. So again, it's a great collaboration, and I appreciate the support that you've given me.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely, and that's what we're here for. We never want to hear news of a plant going idle. We know that it is an asset to the village of Romeo, and if there's a way we can protect it, we will. We'll keep encouraging that maybe perhaps, you say that never say never, that maybe perhaps there is going to be a redevelopment or reuse of that facility where it stays within the Ford name. But if not, what can we potentially look at as far as new users?
Is the sublease strictly restricted to the buildings itself, or are they the property surrounding that could be leased and another building be built, or is it a little bit of everything?
It could be a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I think as these notions come in front of Ford Land, them being willing to hear our strategy, that could be a potential.
Yeah, because I'm sure out of 2.2 million, there's some of them that cannot be repurposed, right? I mean, it's not something that'd be cost-effective to repurpose. So just curious what percentage of the buildings are available to repurpose, and then the properties as well. So not an answer tonight, I'm just curious.
And, by the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned at our last workshop meeting, as we're actively working with Steve Casson and the Planning Commission to redevelop our master plan, it's quite timely that we can include specific call-outs, or at least sort of target to make sure that all of our plans, future goals are in line with that master plan and using that property to the fullest potential to benefit the village of Romeo. So we're looking at that to make sure it's included in there as well.
Because that 2.2 is physical structure, right?
That is correct. This is physical footprint.
Yeah, it's a big building.
It is a big building.
Anybody walked it, you can get your steps in real fast.
It's a lot of buildings.
But they
is what it
use
really
about
is.
half the property, right?
Right.
It's about 70%, I think, is in use right now. But on that note, I did drive past it on the way in today. Just want to make sure that it was operational as usual. We've had conversations with all of our major OEMs in Macomb County, especially with what's happening, to make sure, if there's anything that they need from the county, that we are available. I think it's important to get that messaging out there that, we are here to help, and, leave that message with you guys here as well.
I don't think any of us are doing business as usual, but trying to be close.
We're trying.
Indeed. All right. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Vicki. All right, moving on our agenda, we have correspondences. I have no correspondence to report at this time. Up next would be our officer reports. For my president's report, I simply would just like to read the statement that I drafted on our social media. No,
Never mind.
it's down here.
My bad.
Yeah. I drafted this message and I put it on our Village Hall social media. I believe Catherine is going to update the village website if she didn't already to include this. So here's the update. Dear friends, the county and the state have declared a state of emergency related to the COVID-19 virus. The declaration provides them with access to assistance that might be needed as the situation evolves. It is prudent to be prepared and not panic at this time. Health experts have repeatedly stated that the majority of cases are mild. Those who are elderly and have other health issues that weaken their overall state have more to be concerned about and should take extra precautions. Romeo is announcing the following actions. Number 1, the Bruce Township Fire and EMS personnel, along with the Romeo Police Department, are still on the job and will continue to serve in these most uncertain circumstances. They are following certain protocols to protect themselves and reduce risk of contact with any virus. I ask you to limit your calls to emergency situations only at this time. Essential services such as water and sewer are vital to those crews, and they will continue to serve as well. I have, however, ordered to close both the DPW site and the wastewater treatment facility to non-personnel effective immediately. Staff may shift their duties for the next few weeks to avoid unnecessary entry into homes when possible. Final meter readings may be delayed. Weekly recycling and trash pickup will continue as scheduled. Building inspections and on-site services may be restricted over the next few weeks. Please call our building administrator, Cindy Wilson, for availability. Office personnel, many of whom support essential roles, will continue to serve until further notice, though we are reducing our face-to-face interactions with limited walk-in hours. As of this morning, walk-in hours will be 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon. We have taken certain steps in our offices to ensure a clean and safe environment and ask that you use the hand sanitizer provided at the front counter upon your entry should you need to come and do business. We are strongly encouraging residents to communicate via phone and email if at all possible. We have a drop box located on the side of the Village Hall. You can leave any documentation or bill payments at any time. We will check its contents periodically throughout the day. You may also use our online bill payment system. And if you have any questions regarding that system, please contact the treasurer, Sherry Maddox. She'll be happy to assist you with payments. Beginning Tuesday, March 17th, all municipal meetings will be postponed until further notice. Please note that the state of emergency declaration by the governor has closed all restaurants and bars. These small businesses will need our continued support, and most will be offering carry-out services. Please continue to patronize these establishments, if possible, to help them survive this extreme loss of revenue. I have authorized one parking space allocated for each business direct in front of their establishment for curbside and carry-out pickups. This should make it easy for everybody to just pull up and have their orders brought out to their car. The Center for Disease Control has excellent guidance on identifying symptoms and avoiding the virus. You can read more at www.cdc.gov/coronavirus/2019-NCOV/index. It's on the website if you need that. Or Google it. I'm sure you can find many resources there. This is a time to be cautious and not to panic. This is not a time to assign blame or create fear. It is simply a time to pull together, to protect each other, and especially our most vulnerable. Calm and prudent action will help to avoid spreading the virus and reduce its impact on the fine people of the Village of Romeo. Let's work together as a community to keep our families safe and healthy. Please join me in continuing to pray for our nation, our county, and our community. I have witnessed the coming together of so many wonderful people, generous people, and I know these efforts will continue to assist the most needy and vulnerable in our area. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your cooperation and caring. Christine Malzahn, Village of Romeo President. at this time. Do we have a clerk's report? I think we're just expediting the meeting, and we do not have
Yep,
any.
I'm foregoing my
Right.
report for the month of March. I will report back in April in lieu of time to keep the meeting moving.
In a fashion to try and limit the number of people here. I did tell Treasurer Maddox that I would convey her message, which is with the drop in interest rate, she's actively looking at our investments, making sure that the money is transferred where it needs to be and as protected as possible. So she's working on that. So that was her report. Are there any reports from any of the trustees at this time? All right. Hearing none, and our ex officio planning commission member is absent tonight. Just a quick note, you will see in the packet for discussion, the fence ordinance update, and their minutes from the meeting are in there. We go over that when the time comes for that agenda item. All right, any reports from the subcommittee, parking lot subcommittee?
No, I've waited to reach out there to have a meeting, but it's not necessary at this time to rush anything, so we'll just wait.
Absolutely. If I could just take a minute, I know it's not on your agenda, but I did receive word from John Paderak from Armada. They have voted at their board to not engage in the Second Amendment sewer agreement. So that project for the sewer expansion over on the Powell corridor should be terminated, and they're not going to move that forward at this time. I haven't received anything in writing, but he gave me a call to let me know that that was headed our way. All right, let's move on to unfinished business. We have the marijuana opt-in, opt-out proposal. There was no information provided in your packet, but we talked about this at our goals and objectives. And the reason that I put it on there, in conversations that I've had with our legal counsel, Mr. Clark, it would not be prudent of us to opt in or opt out at this point if we wanted to further entertain the proposal that was presented to us until we have an ordinance in place. We don't want to open ourselves up to the Wild West if it takes us some time to sort of craft that. There are lots of drafted ordinances in the Michigan Municipal League and other resources that I have availability to for those documents. And I think we can work together, I can work together with Mark to sort of bring that forward to you in the interim of this delay in our government meetings. But before I do that and I waste that effort, I needed just to narrow down the scope of what we're looking at. So I believe the proposal before us was for recreational marijuana. And there's a couple of caveats that when I look at this ordinance, so we need to determine, is it for recreational? Is it for medical? Is it for a dispensary? Is it for a grow facility? Is it for all of the above? I just want to narrow down the scope of what you're thinking so that I know how far out to look for the inclusions into that ordinance. So,
I think as far as I was concerned, I would like to limit it to just growing facilities. Whether it's for recreational or medical, I guess that's not, I don't have a problem either way. But I would like to limit it to growing facilities and not dispensaries.
and it's my understanding that you have to say which one it is for. Is it for medical or is it for recreational? Who are they growing it for to sell to? So I know that Mr. Lucero and his attorney are here. If anybody does have any other questions, or if you wanted to give us a quick update, because I have communicated that to him of my concerns, and I needed to ask him for clarification on a few things before I presented it to you tonight. So.
Yeah, so just to recap, IAI is looking to grow recreational adult use marijuana. We are not looking for a dispensary at all, so it would just be a grow operation located in the industrial end of town off of Powell. That's really it. If you guys have any questions, though, like President Malzahn said, we do have our attorney here too, who's quite well versed in the law and the precedents that have been set already within the law and within the other communities. So I brought him here specifically if you guys had other questions regarding how other municipalities are actually tackling the opt-in.
I have a question, maybe not necessarily along that line, but for instance, when we decide to do something, we have to open it up to all of the public, there has to be a bid process. Is there any conflict, I don't know, addressed you, Mark, is there conflict in just working with the one vendor? Do we have to open this permit up to the whole public to allow them? And can we limit the number of permits?
You can, and one of the things, let me take a half a step back before I address that specifically. Ms. Malzahn mentioned that the village is reviewing its master plan, which it is. One of the other things that is of a concern to me on behalf of the village and advising you with respect to what you do is you don't have anything in your existing ordinances as far as zoning goes. And the state law does give you the ability to zone the uses and where they can take place. And you don't have anything in your existing ordinances, which again, to me, is a very important reason to consider this fully and maybe have, if you choose to have Mr. Casson look at that and make some recommendations as far as zoning. The proposal is, the suggestion is for a grow operation only in the industrial area, but your ordinances don't provide for that and do not limit it to that. And so you can opt in on a category basis, if you will, but then you do have to be careful about picking a single use or a single grower. There are requirements depending on the circumstances with respect to I don't know if competitive bidding is the right phrase to use, but a competitiveness to allow more than one person or one entity to do this. What's being suggested, and I mean no disrespect at all, what's being suggested is opt in for this particular operation. And I suggest to you, you should look at it far more broadly.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about, is can we be in trouble for that?
And we did clarify at the end of last meeting that was actually a typo in the packet, that we have no problem with other people, but we do want, we would like to be able to be.
I remember you saying that the competition breeds better. I remember you saying that. I'm just saying on a municipal level, can we only work with one person? Do we need to be open to the whole public?
But this isn't something we would put out for bid. We write an ordinance.
No, and that's where I'm not understanding it.
You would have to allow other interested parties, and so if you limit the distance between them or among them, or you limit the numbers, then you have to allow all comers, if you will.
Right, it must be a half mile.
Can I make a comment on council? I'm sorry.
Sorry, can you give us your name, please?
Christopher Cataldo, and I'm an attorney. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner. I spoke with council this morning. The statute does give this council tremendous discretion in the number of these businesses that you want to have in your community. There is no set requirement of having any given number. That's really up to you, whether it be 1 or 10,000 of these. That is your choice. And as Jamie mentioned a moment ago, that is not a condition of this proposal that they be the exclusive. We certainly don't want that to get into the way of this. If you feel that, you know, more of these are a better opportunity for the community and will bring more revenue in, we are certainly welcome to that and have that made part of this proposal. So we don't want that to get in the way of this.
I guess if I can clarify a little bit better, it's, say we choose to do this and we have one permit. Can we say, you get this? Or do we have to open that up to say, whoever comes in first on Monday, whatever date, gets it? Like, how do we choose? Does it have to be open to the public?
It's determined through the ordinance. So we can choose to have a lottery process. You know, you put everybody's number in and you pick a hat. You can do it by date of submission. I mean, it's very broad, and that's why we need to work to develop that ordinance so that we know exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, yes.
So there's no rule on how to do that. We are going to create that.
It is our responsibility to create that if we're going to allow 0, 1, 10, 20, and how we're going to select them, yes.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is...
Can I just ask one more question? If there's any timetable put on this, we would hope that this doesn't drag on indefinitely, that if we could, you know, determine what, you know, will be the scope of how much time it's going to take, if we can have some input on the ordinance, that would be certainly something we would welcome.
It was one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that it was on this agenda tonight, because I do not know how long the ban on public gatherings will take, but I feel that I can certainly be working on that in the interim so that we don't have to delay this, and I can get, the basic information that I need to start from established tonight, so that would allow me to work on that.
Well, the longer the delay, the more the opportunity to go somewhere else and do it if we think it's something that's worthwhile. Now we're 3 months, 6 months, 9 months out, and we're still doing this, and they're in Armada. I guess the question I have, recreational versus medical, I don't know if that would make a difference to us. I mean, they seem one and the same to me. I wouldn't want to restrict.
Do we have to choose?
I mean, can
You do have to choose, yes. You can choose one or you can choose both, but there are ties, that need to either be bound together or separated
Right.
if you don't want both.
But a
Okay.
grower for recreational doesn't mean a dispensary, right?
Right.
So what you're growing for and where you're shipping it seems almost irrelevant to me.
There is some case law that came to our attention, and Catherine and I went to a conference about best practices in zoning, and at that conference, we had an opportunity to ask the facilitator a private question once it concluded, and she said that, yes, there is case law that the precedent has been set in some municipalities where it wasn't clear in their ordinance if they were tied together. If you have one, you must allow the other. It's been argued in a court of law, so I just, again, want to make sure that we are very thorough. If that is your intention, that you only want medical or you only want recreational, tell me what that is, or if you want me to consider both, I'll consider both.
Is there a dollar amount that you need to budget for
I don't
moving
think that it
forward?
requires any funding at this time, because again, most of those are available from the MML, and I can, sort of draft and encompass that. Mr. Clark will certainly, assist me making sure that all the legalities are there and the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we would proceed with looking at an ordinance that could encompass both recreational and medical use, that we can decide with all that information. We could develop both, I believe, or the options, and
But a
then
grow
choose with the
facility
ordinance.
only.
A grow facility only.
okay, so we have a motion on the table by Mr. Hart to investigate an ordinance allowing both recreational and/or medical for grow facility only. Is that
Yes,
correct? Okay.
that's good.
Do we have support? Support by Edwards. You might take a roll call on that for me, even though there's no money, but
Okay. Hart,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Sorry, my eyes are jumping. Poznanski,
No.
Bartholomew,
Yes. Yes.
President Milzan.
yes,
That's everybody.
motion carries. Okay, so I'll work on that in the interim. The next on our unfinished business was Village to City Exploration Committee. Again, the same purpose, to have this on the agenda for tonight, because I feel it's important to be able to research and establish a baseline, to establish the Exploration Committee that I mentioned, and I can be doing a lot of that work while we are on this sort of municipal break. So I'd like to just find out, if there was support with the information that I provided, that you think that this is a process that we should investigate.
Is there
That
money?
investigation, I'd like to, with this one, have a not-to-exceed amount right now. Not that I would employ special counsel, but it will require special counsel. There may be some forms or some items that need to be done, a boundary assessment, and some financial documents that may need to be prepped. I do not know what the costs are associated with each individual one, but I've been told that it should cost no more than $5,000 to $10,000.
For the entire package, right, to present.
Certainly, if it's over the 3,500 threshold, I would probably look to follow the bid policy and bid out those services, but I don't even know what vendors at this point, so it's one of those things that I would just have to investigate and bring that forward, or have
Can you
the-
begin with
have
5,
the
or do you need 10?
They said it was in that range
Yes.
to do some of the paperwork.
between the two. So, whoever.
And that's just preliminary? Is there more after that?
There should not be more after that, from what I was told, that those procedures and those documentations that have to be done need to be submitted to the state. And then, once the state approves it, then it just is a ballot proposal. So I should go back. There may be some fund allocation for actually putting it on the ballot. I don't know what the county's fees are to actually process that ballot language, but.
But that would be with anything we put on the ballot.
Yeah, yes. Mhm.
Because one of the examples in the PowerPoint, theirs was upwards of over 40,000. So that's what, you had talked about 10, and they put an actual line item of all of it, and it was over 40 grand. So I was wondering what.
Well, I believe that one had some other additional litigation. I think that there was some other court
Which city
problems
was that one?
with it.
I
Do you
don't
remember?
I don't remember which one.
If it was
Do
in
you remember
the,
the name of the two? I don't remember.
One was.
Jonesville was one,
that we had the
and it might have been
Did it start with the D?
Decker,
I think it was
Dexter.
the Dexter one.
Dexter, and Dexter's the one that had that boundary adjustment. I think that was one of the things that was a point of contention, and that they had to kind of do everything over again. So they had some lessons that they had learned in the process.
But I was thinking, even if you cut that in half, that's still over 10.
Pardon?
Even if you cut it in half, even if they did everything twice, you cut that in half and it was still over 10.
Well, it wasn't that they did things twice, they just had to reach out and do a whole bunch of different litigation because of issues that came up. It really, I don't think it's a this plus this plus this. I think they had to do a bunch of different things that weren't
Well,
expected.
It was
so.
making the boundaries was the most expensive. That was 35 grand.
Right, and at this time, I would not propose that we're adjusting our boundaries at all. We're not trying to annex
No,
any property in.
Not adjusting, but even that just getting the paperwork for the boundaries was 35.
But that wasn't typical because they were changing the boundary. We would be taking our existing boundaries.
Okay.
That is where that came in. So that's why, or in the last meeting, it's recommended that maybe, unless you have to, there's a purpose to do that, you don't want to have to mess with the boundaries at that time, because it can open up a whole other amount of issues, so.
Okay, I just was curious.
That's my understanding too, but I don't know until we actually, compile those figures and meet with the people who would perform those services. I don't know if that would be an engineering firm. I'm not sure yet, so just a bunch of homework that I sort of need to do. And in point, my first order of business would really sort of be to establish an exploration subcommittee. I'd like to have 2 or 3 residents on there. I'd like to have 1 member from our planning commission, 1 member from our HDC, probably 1 member as ex officio from this board to sort of serve on that committee. And I would just contact the people. I opened it up at the last meeting if anybody was interested to, submit their name and contact information to me for consideration. So again, it's just one of those things that I would work on, establishing that exploration committee, and then gathering them, having them look at the packet that I received from the Village of New Haven. It's very comprehensive, and it gives a lot of good direction, so they can take a look at that and establish maybe a list of questions or starting points that they feel are necessary to move it forward. That portion won't require any expenditure of money, but if they do need to, for whatever reason, spend any, I just wanted to make sure that I had the latitude and understanding that it would be supported by this board with even a not-to-exceed amount.
And how would we go about picking the residents? Obviously, you said if they were interested, right in, but then how would they be picked?
It would just, sort of be at my discretion, because it's not an official board that's established in the village. So again, I'm just looking to establish a well-rounded, I'm not looking to have 25 people. I'd like to limit it to 10 or 12 people. Yeah.
That's even a lot.
Even 10 or 12, right, that list of people. But I'm looking just to make sure that we have representation, from every facet of the village, because again, the proposal ultimately would not come a recommendation from me. It would be from this body. So I would want to make sure that,
And
again,
it's not a decision board, it's a board that's putting
Just a
together the
recommendation.
proposal. It's fact-finding and information gathering and whatever.
But if we
you
can
wanna call it.
get, right, if we can get a person from, every sort of sector,
That's
I
what
think
I
then we would
suggest.
have a
Each-
broad,
Could we do
right,
one
whatever
for
their
each
interests are.
quadrant?
Could be a good way to do that, so.
And where is this money going to be allocated from?
Well, I was going to suggest, if it's approved, that it would come from the beautification fund that we have established, that 400, or it's roughly 500,000, the money that we earmarked from last year.
Well, it seems logical.
Mhm.
I'll make the motion to proceed with pulling together the, I guess you call it a subcommittee?
Exploration Committee.
Exploration Committee.
Yes.
I don't, no deep sea diving or anything like that.
But
Okay.
then with the budget,
With not to exceed 10,000.
Okay, so we have a motion by Settle. Do we have support?
Support?
Support by Edwards. And a roll call on that, please.
Seidel? Excuse me,
Yes.
Seidel? Edwards?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Poznanski?
No.
Hart?
yes.
President Malzahn?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-1.
And if I may throw my hat in the ring to be one of the trustees on the committee, I would appreciate that.
Okay, certainly. I would be happy to consider that.
You can throw my name in there as well.
All right, let's move on to new business. We have our fence ordinance and permit fee schedule. This was brought to our attention. We're constantly dealing with maybe some neighbor disputes in the area, and an antiquated fence ordinance that was on the books. The old ordinance required a signature if somebody wanted to put a 6-foot fence along their property line of the abutting residents, and there was some issues with that, of people either not, wanting to let their neighbors put up a fence. So we sort of looked at, how do we make sure that we can eliminate, I want to say, the feelings, the feelings that are out there, and just really focus on making sure that fences are installed where they should be. So we established a new ordinance with the help of Mr. Casson. He submitted it to the Planning Commission. They approved it. You can see in their minutes that they have recommended that it be brought to this board for adoption. The basic is, if you want to put a 4-foot fence, it's pretty much the permit application that was in existence. If you want to put a 6-foot fence up, it will be now allowed, but you have to have a survey, a boundary survey, because a lot of our fences are supposedly built on their neighbor's property, or they're not in the right spot, and so it's sort of been a point of contention. There's some other things that Steve built into there to make sure that the pretty side of the fence needs to face the neighbor's house, not the inside of your backyard. And so I'm assuming you've all read it, and we're also updating the permit fees that would go along with that. $150 for a 4-foot fence and $250 for a 48 height or greater. There is a limit. You can't just build a 10-foot fence, by the way.
Not to
There
exceed
is some-
60.
Right, and I
Right,
think there was
but-
something in there about the grade too. You see, you can't put a foot or 2 feet of dirt and then put your
Yes.
fence up. That's happened.
Yeah, that's happened.
Genius.
Right, the proverbial loophole. So I'd like a motion for adoption, if,
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented.
Are we doing the ordinance and the
Support.
fees, or just ordinance?
does your motion include the fee schedule?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by Hart. Does your support still include the fee schedule?
Yes.
Okay. Can you call a roll on that, please?
Oh, wait, who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Bartholomew.
Nate.
Okay. Hart?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Seidel?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
President Malzahn?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. 0.
That's okay. Next up, we have an Arbor Day proclamation. So as you know, the tree board is actively working. They had a small gathering at the library before the library closed, another education day. We are actively working, the tree board is actively working to become a designated Tree City USA. In order to fulfill the criteria for that designation, we have to have an official Arbor Day proclamation and an Arbor Day event. So we are looking to gather some places that we can plant trees, Bob, did you want to speak to any of that? Because Bob has been sort of helping with that subcommittee just as a liaison. We're going to plant how many trees? 4? We're hoping for 4 on Arbor Day?
We were going to have our last meeting, and we didn't have
got
that. I think
canceled.
there's going to be a couple at a bank. I think 3 or 4 trees that would be on Main Street, so, and maybe a few others.
Yes.
So I don't know
Okay.
the exact number.
But they're still building the scope of that. They were supposed to have a meeting, and it's since been canceled. I believe they're going to use a meeting on April 12th.
Might be.
I think it's April 12th for planning for our Arbor Day celebration. But in the meantime, I needed to make this proclamation. So, a proclamation by the President of the Village of Romeo, Michigan, declaring Friday, April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling cost, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beauty to our community. And whereas trees in our village increase property tax, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and provide character to our community. And now, therefore, I, Christine Malzahn, President of the Village of Romeo, on behalf of the Village Council, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day in the Village of Romeo, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and our woodlands. I further urge all citizens to plant trees in order to promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated the 16th day of March, 2020.
Just wanted to, I think you actually said they increased property taxes, not property values.
Really?
I think that's what you said. I don't think it's what you wrote, but.
Well, I want to change that. Where do
Well, no,
you?
it
You
says
said it.
values.
It's written
did I?
values, but I think.
Okay, I misspoke.
Yep.
Okay,
'Cause it
yes.
kinda caught
Well,
my
thank you
ear. Wow.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Gotta pay more
Yes.
for
You had more words than the paper.
Sorry.
Right? I don't know what I was reading. So I just need a motion for support of the proclamation, or is that a resolution?
Proclamation.
Okay.
For
A motion?
resolution?
Motion
A motion.
to approve the proclamation, please.
A motion to, okay, I'll make a motion to approve the proclamation for Arbor Day.
Support.
Okay. So motion by Hart, support by Poznanski. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 6-0. Last up under new business, you have the lawn maintenance bid. Catherine sent out a bid proposal for the several factors in our village, but the main one was to replace the expiring contract from the provider from several years ago for the maintenance and upkeep of our municipal-owned areas, the Village Park, the wastewater treatment plant, the DPW, the iron removal plant. There's a couple others. Bailey Street parking lot, they're listed in their proposal. So you have before you a spreadsheet that lists all of the bidders that submitted their proposals. You have copies of their proposal in your packet. Is there any discussion or thoughts on? Delco was the service provider from the last contract, if that means anything. Avery Pro Lawn Care is one of our outgoing police officers who's going to work full-time for his business, if that,
There's just
so that you know.
anybody still needs him.
Oh. Yes. So Delco just, so what was the weekly?
This was just on the year.
So what is that?
427.
For yearly, it was $7,222 was what Delco, what we paid last year.
All right.
What's the number of weeks we multiply by?
Because they did like 35 weeks, wasn't it?
Yes, the bid was for how many weeks? It was
Oh,
from
I'm sorry, I
April
missed that
to,
part.
April to
November.
October, no, November.
So that's at least 26?
Some of them were calculating 35 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
but that was in their proposal, so.
Yeah, you know what, I did not do that calculation to see how many weeks Delco actually,
But this is a weekly rate regardless, right?
yes.
Yes.
I mean, this is, so
Yes.
it's a comparative, it's an apples-to-apples comparison, right? Do we have references on any of these for commercial properties that they do? I mean, this is a bigger deal than cutting personal property, right?
Was references included as part of the bid proposal,
They
or
were not
just their certificate of insurance is what we do have?
Yeah. And today, I just was kind of looking at the same thing to see what kind of references. I did, the lowest bidder was Scott's Lawn Maintenance, so I made a phone call to Scott up in Elmont, and I asked him if there was any references, because it had said that he was 20 years in business and did some other municipalities, but at one point, he had done, I think, up in Elmont, and then he was outbid last year. So I've been thinking, I don't know what we were going to do with our cemetery, but I did get a really good reference from the cemetery that's up there. He has been doing that for 4 years now, and they're very happy with what he's doing for the cemetery work up there. So that might be a consideration for that work.
Yes, we did have that bid out separately, a
Yes.
proposal for our cemetery maintenance, and once we analyze what we need to do and compare costs, then we'll bring that forward for approval. But right now, for tonight's meeting, we just wanted to make sure that, again, if we can't meet for a while, that we have somebody in line to actually mow the grass and weed whack as soon as they start growing up, so.
Would you be, because I may be a little bit more talking with some of the people, if we maybe did a motion to not exceed maybe the, I don't know which, like 431, that would give you like 3 or 4 to look at, and then choose out of that which one you'd want. There was a couple other things as far as what the cleanup costs were. I saw some differences that were there. So I don't know personally, to just, might take a little bit more of maybe taking the 2 or 3 and then making a decision out of that and giving you the latitude to do that. Would that be something that you can pick one not to exceed? I'll go ahead and I'll make a motion that I would allow the, village office to select a vendor not to exceed $431 a week for service.
Okay.
So that rules out 1. 2.
2.
Because the difference literally is $19,000 for our, not even our top, yeah, $19,000 for our top bidder.
There is cleanup costs. There was like set costs that they have, and some were $1,000, some were $1,200, one was $500. So there was some difference there.
What does cleanup cost?
Like going in and doing the spring cleanup, going in
Spring and fall cleanup.
and getting all the leaves and all the things out. So there were some other variables there.
So
So if you're comfortable in doing that,
So you're asking us to just do a little more research and get references?
maybe from
and-
those, who you would feel, based on that, not to exceed that amount, pick one of those vendors. So you have a range between 245 and 431.
But I'd also like to see a column on the spreadsheet that says cleanup, whatever the ancillary costs are,
And
each one of these are going to throw
yeah,
at
and
us.
that's in here on the bids. So if you need to have this before our next meeting, if we had time, I would say we can maybe develop a little bit more and have some reference. But if you need to make a choice here, I would give you the latitude to do that, just based on, the dollar amount.
Well,
Do you accept that challenge, or would you?
That's your motion, so, yeah, that's your motion, and that's fine. Do we have support for that motion?
Support?
Okay, so we have a motion by Hart. Let's just take the roll call and see how it goes. Okay, so the motion was for
Choose a
the village
vendor.
staff to
Select, not to
Select.
exceed.
do some more research, get the references, and determine who was going to give us the best value and with the best,
And I did put the price of the 431, so that knocks
Okay.
out a couple of vendors.
okay.
so it would not come in front of us again for a vote?
Right.
Before you vote on that, may I ask, were these sealed bids?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, then I'd recommend you not do that, because what you're talking about doing is opening the bids and then
Right.
negotiating or renegotiating.
Well, not price, though, just references and taking the consideration of the other things.
I'm just cautioning you, I recommend against, if they were sealed bids and they were timely submitted and the bids submitted were within the parameters you gave for the submission of bids, you can reject any and all, you can accept all or one, but I strongly recommend against you negotiating or renegotiating or asking for information from some and not all of them, and picking essentially outside of your bid process. The bid process is in place for a reason, and if you're going to alter the bid process, then my recommendation would be alter it and allow bidders again. I really,
But let me just...
I'm not going to quarrel with you, I'm just, that's just...
No, I don't want to, I don't want to quarrel. What I'm saying is not renegotiating what any of the prices or any of the bids are. They can select anyone under a threshold, and they could take on the process that we would take. We would be looking at what their references are, what the other costs, taking everything concerned, but not asking anybody to sharpen their pencil.
No, but I
But I
think to
think
Mark's
even asking
point...
for references is kind of doing that as
No,
well.
no, I don't think, I think you can, I think I understand what you're saying, Mark. Don't eliminate anybody, leave all 7 of them on here. Keep the prices. You can reach out for references, you can do that. So reach out for the references, put a column in here that has all the ancillary costs. So if the lowest bidder has $5,000 in cleanup and the highest bidder has 0 in cleanup, then we're a lot closer than we were. So put the additional columns in there, leave the 7 bidders on there, ask for references, and then I think your motion is, you guys decide what you think is best based on what's put in front of you.
Right, not changing prices.
Well, you're
or-
changing, but by eliminating bidders, you're changing the scope. So you're just reaching out to all of them equally,
Okay.
asking for references, getting those references back. If they choose not to, they chose not to.
Okay.
And nobody gets to change their amount.
Mr. Clark, you feel that there's a problem with me putting a bar of the bidders, that it could be, you know, I could even name out 4 or 5 and eliminate the top 2, or do you think
I say
that's
no.
where it's problematic?
Well, I'm troubled by 2 things. One is, if you're altering the scope or the particulars of the bid, I strongly recommend against doing that. And so that's one concern. And then the other is, if the bid process is submit the bids within these parameters, and then they'll be opened and they'll be scored in some fashion. You've scored them by weekly service, the amount. I think that's fine. There's no problem with that. But then you're saying we're going to have somebody other than us, meaning the village council, make the decision. And again, if that's not how it was presented in the bid or the request for bids, you're altering the process and the result of the process. And I recommend against you doing that.
Right, so if I think we can just do the work real fast. It's 8 o'clock, and I know we're in a hurry to get out of here, but even if you just took the bottom 3 providers, because, I mean, I don't think that we need to consider, you know, the highest one. I think we could, obviously, you know, eliminate that just based on price. If I was going to argue for that, I would say, let's eliminate that.
So the bottom 3 price-wise, not literally the bottom 3.
Correct, the bottom, right. So I can tell you that we were not happy with the level of service that we received with Delco, so I would caution about that. So I would look at the 278 from Lawnscape Group, if you pull out their proposal. I would look at the 245 from Scott's Lawn Maintenance, and I would look at the 360 from Avery Pro Lawn. And if we were just quickly to do a cursory glance at those, could we glean any of that information out that you're looking for? So the spring cleanup for Avery Pro was $500. Is that what you?
Avery was $500 for cleanup.
$500 for the spring cleanup.
And it's
Yes.
$45 an hour for whatever, if they're billing for something, it's $45 an hour.
Right, for additional work, if we need them to pull
Right.
weeds out of, because Megan had asked to have somebody pull weeds out of
So-
one of the parking
And-
lots.
So anything outside of the scope of the bid is $45 an hour.
Yes.
Yeah, and landscape group was 42 an hour. And I don't know what their cleanup cost was.
This was 45, so let's see, the spring cleanup, iron removal, well, they have it broken up by parcel, so they have 200, 300, 300, so that's 600, 700, 775, 775, yes, so $775 for spring cleanup from landscape group, if my math is correct. And their hourly fee was $42 per man hour.
Landscape group, we were talking about the fall cleanup?
I counted this, I did spring cleanup.
Spring
Did you want me to do
cleanup.
fall?
Okay,
I
no,
just did spring.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. And then if you look at Scott's,
Fall is much more extensive.
Scott's lawn maintenance was $275 for the spring cleanup, and I don't see an hourly rate. Does anybody else? Looking at it right now.
It's 35. Oops, wrong one, sorry. Which vendor are you looking at?
Scott's. Scott's lawn maintenance.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I think I divided, let's see. No, you didn't have,
All right, so that leaves, do you want me to add those together? I'm not sure what your rating system is for choosing the bids for,
Did we ask for fall cleanup to be included? Is it, I don't see it on the Avery.
I believe that was another optional fall cleanup.
Okay.
No, that was on the bid that was mandatory on the bid.
Okay.
Do you see it? Am I
Pricing
missing it?
for fall and spring cleanup.
No, I do not see it either, Megan. Because the other two, yes, Scott's has fall cleanup at the same price, and then there's different fall cleanups for the lawnscape group. Do you want me to add that
The
up?
lawn was over, I did it really quick, it was over $1,000.
For fall?
Yeah.
It's all those leaves, right? It's just all those leaves.
It was like 15 or so.
Yes. Okay. In the fall cleanup, 360. Yes. So does that help you clarify anything? I mean, I know you still don't have any referrals, references, other than the phone call that Bob made for Scott's lawn maintenance.
So what was the fall cleanup total for Scott's?
For Scott's, you were at $245 and $275 with an undetermined amount for miscellaneous hourly. I don't see that provided. $245 plus $275, so it's $520. See, well, I don't know if you want to include that in the full, because it's not $520 a week, it's just a flat fee.
No, it's a separate column, right? It's
Right.
It's 35 weeks times the weekly amount plus whatever the cleanups are, is what the grand total that we'd be
right, Scott's
paying.
came up to like 60, oh, that was the cemetery. Okay, total down.
So without,
I like that Avery has in their prices for shoveling snow.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
So even if that could be something for further, if that's not where we even go.
Yes, indeed. Okay. So if we're just looking at the weekly, and you said you're just comparing these at 32 weeks, right?
35.
So 35 weeks? Excuse me. It's required, 360 times 35. So Avery is $12,600 plus $500 for the spring cleanup, plus $45 per hour for miscellaneous. That's Avery. Okay. Scott's was $245 times 35. So $8,575 plus $275 for cleanup, plus a question mark for the hourly. And then we were also looking at Lawnscape Group, 278 times 35, $9,730, plus $775 for spring cleanup, and $42 for hourly.
So they're all still pretty competitive.
Just the one thing I would mention with Scott's, I would think he might be considered, because he even asked about the cemetery. I think that's what he really, the size of what work he wants to do. And references, there was a bowling alley that he's done for 25 years, so I'm presuming that's a friend that he has. But that was really the two references on kind of a short notice he could give me. So I did call both of those. But there's not a lot that he has done in municipalities that he could give me. You know, that's what I asked for specifically. And those, you know, but he did have a cemetery that the guy said, he'll probably talk to the president. He's done it there for 4 years now, and they're very happy with how he's handling their cemetery.
So do we take into consideration the size of the crew, how long it takes them to do it? I mean, do they get this done in one day, or is it they're constantly cutting our grass because it's one guy with a 20-inch mower?
The criteria is for one day for this work to be performed on Thursdays.
Okay, so it is a
throughout the-
one-day,
right, yes.
one-day deal, you're in, you're out, and the day is over, and every piece of
Yes.
grass is cut inside the village,
Right.
inside the scope.
I don't know if that's 5 guys or 10 guys.
That doesn't
or
matter. I
one
just
guy,
wanted to
right,
know
but it's
if
one day, yes.
You know, me with my 20-inch Toro taking 7 days to do the in full circle. I don't know, I feel like I'm missing like 5 columns of information. I don't know the number of weeks. I don't know like a grand total of what it's going to cost. The spring cleanup isn't broken out, the fall cleanup, the hourly rate. I feel like I'm going to pick low bidder because I don't have any reference.
Can we,
So I don't
we
know.
can
I
scrap
feel like
it
If
and
we're
start
going to
over?
pick one from here, I would maybe say reconsider Landscape Group, but that's only.
But
without-
the only, I don't know
We
why I
can
would
choose to not
consider.
select any. If you're not happy with it, we can refine what criteria that you find lacking, and we can send the bid proposals back out.
So if someone doesn't, like, include the hourly rate for their person, do you just throw that bid out because it didn't meet the criteria, or do you call them and say, hey, well, how much is the hourly rate? I mean, it was specific what we wanted in the criteria, right?
Right.
So, I mean, they didn't meet the bid pack, that vendor could
Correct.
be off. I don't know which one that is, right? But that could be a reason to be disqualified from the bid. I don't know. I just would rather have everything like, in a line.
Well, the calculations that I did were for 35 weeks.
Okay.
So whether that was from, April 1st or May 15th, depending on when the grass actually starts growing, to when, when
All right.
when the winter starts and, the lawn stops growing, whether it's 28 or 32 or 35 weeks, we still know what it is on average per week.
Right.
So I would say at maximum, if we're calculating 35 weeks, you would spend $12,600 with Avery and $500 for the spring cleanup initially. Whether we had them do fall cleanup or not, we could, see.
Or
When does our current service end? It's already ended.
It's already ended.
So we
Yep.
have no, okay.
do we consider local versus outside the village when we make a decision like this? I mean, are any of these vendors local?
Yeah, one's from, Avery's from Shelby, right? Lawnscape is from Washington, and Scott is from Elmont, so they're all,
Okay, I don't know if that's
They're all
where
right
we,
there.
something we would consider either, so if we can in the bid process or not.
It seems like Lawnscape's the lowest bidder and completed all the things we asked them to do.
Right.
So and they are relatively local, they're in Washington, so it
Have
seems to
we-
me that would be the.
Do we have any information on them?
And it's 3,000 less than Avery is. And it's 1,000 more, 1,200 more than Scott's.
Well, it's not 3,000 because the spring cleanup was more than, splitting hairs, but.
9,730 and 12,600, 500, 775, 2,700.
again, if you think that you need more information, you don't have to choose to accept any of them. Or we can do the same process we just did for the other, but they're going to be more based on at least the weekly service being higher,
Is
more
the-
than what
Is the
But you
quote
need-
from Delco what we were currently paying? So no matter what, if we pick any of the lower, we are still
I
improving.
think the rates went up, I'll have to verify.
It looks like Delco last year, they invoiced us at $7,222.
For the whole year.
But they did not do spring, or they didn't do any cleanup service.
Well, they're like
Drastically higher.
$14,000 now, for almost 15 grand in this
Yes.
quote, without the spring
Yes.
cleanups.
Right.
So.
Do you need this, I mean...
You don't have to make a decision. My concern was that, if for some reason this virus, I can just make the call under the authority that I'm going to have with the state of emergency to pay Ron White to come and cut the grass in April if I had to.
Which he didn't
until
bid.
we
do again.
awarded
He
the
did not bid.
contract, right?
Then I say we reject all bids, maybe do just an hourly, not to exceed whatever the average is here, $42, $45 an hour, to get it done in case we can't come back to make the next selection.
I mean, the only thing I'm really missing are references, right? I just don't feel like I know any one of these guys, this companies to pick. I mean,
Okay.
I don't feel I have anything to go by.
That's fair
You
enough.
reached
I mean,
out
they've
to
already
one.
done their proposal, so
I just
we
reach
will.
out to one.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not always, the lowest isn't always, not that it, I don't know that company,
Lowest, and
but
I-
sometimes lowest isn't the way to go either. I don't, it's.
Can we go back and
Talking
ask
to
for
the lowest, I
references?
That's
didn't
what I
feel
think I
like
was
I
gonna
had
ask.
From all of them for a
except for
resubmission,
maybe the
including
cemetery.
references.
Well, I only asked because you guys have already seen the original bid and voted on it, and there wasn't any speaker references at that time, so now we want to go back and...
So that's a
just-
rebidding it, Mark? Is that what
Either-
that would, ends up being if we
If
ask
we
for
reject all
references?
Because the original bid was, bid language has already been approved.
Well, you can, instead of reject, you can take no action on the bids and then request references from all of them.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure you
I'd
treat
prefer
or
to do
give,
that.
give everybody equal opportunity. Some may choose not to provide references, or
Correct.
a company may not have references. So you don't have to get references, but I recommend that you give everybody the opportunity for equal consideration and equal opportunity to present. So you don't have to reject them, you could just table this
Table it.
for the,
That's-
and a request for references from all the bidders, give them a deadline, and if they submit the references, you have them. If they don't, they don't, but again, everybody will then treat it equally.
I tried to look landscape up on the internet. There's no-
7 million of them?
No, there's none.
Oh.
They went to, do you mean landscape, not landscape,
So-
they don't have a website.
Based on what Mark said is what I'd like to do, and then I guess if we, because of the virus, we don't have a chance to meet, the backup plan is to just hire
I would just
somebody
get it
at
done.
X number
Right.
of dollars to get that week done, or the 2 weeks that we need to have done.
That is the option.
Before we vote on that, though,
wanna
Bob has to rescind his vote, please.
I'll rescind my motion.
Is there a second? I'm sorry.
No, you're
Can you
fine.
vote on that, please? Voting on rescinding, please?
Okay, so do you just want all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of rescinding Bob's motion? Okay, any opposed?
Even though
Okay.
no board action was taken, it still needs to be rescinded?
Okay,
So I
So
guess
that
if I'm
motion is
making
dead.
a
Okay.
motion, it's to contact the existing bidders and request references.
yes.
Tabling this for now.
Yeah, table
can-
this.
Is there any other information that you
I was
think
going
you
to say,
want?
can we ask for fall cleanup from Avery?
I don't think you
Can you
can.
ask specific? They didn't include it.
It was already on the bid.
If the request was clear, this is the information we want, and not all the information is provided, then that should factor in your consideration on your choice.
Okay.
Right.
So again, if you're gonna alter the terms of the request for proposal of bid, then my recommendation would be to rebid it, alter it
Don't-
in any fashion or manner that you want, and rebid it.
We can choose to throw out one that doesn't have what we requested in it if we want, but I'm suggesting we go to the 7 bidders, ask for references, call it a day.
Yep.
Okay,
What is that?
okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I
we
don't know
will
if you
do
type
that.
it that way, but.
And then we're
that's
going to
what
table this till
Yes.
next meeting.
Do we need a motion
So
for
we have a
you
motion
to
to
take
table?
care?
Right.
Do
I'm
we
sorry.
need a motion for you to take care of everything in case we can't come?
It'll be included in the declaration, state of emergency declaration, so I think we're fine with that.
We need a motion to.
We need a motion to
postpone the
table.
vote,
To
or-
table until we get the references.
So that was by Hart. Do we have support?
Support.
Support by Bartholomew. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll bring that back. Okay. Now, where did I put my agenda? I've shuffled it in my paperwork. I apologize.
Public comment.
Here it is. Oh, right, okay. Yes, good. So we have the state of emergency resolution that we added as line item D. Yes. So if you, 1, 2, 3, we drafted this real fast, and Mark was busy adding the little inserted information that came about earlier today. So Chief Solkonicki was on a conference call with Brandon at the Emergency Operations Center in the county, and they suggested that we declare a local state of emergency that allows us to utilize Public Act 390. And in observance of that and the authority by the General Village Law Act, I am going to officially declare a state of emergency. So I will read this, State of Emergency Resolution 01-2020. Whereas the Governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, has declared a state of emergency in Michigan starting March 12th, 2020. And whereas the Macomb County Executive, Mark Hackel, has declared a state of emergency for the County of Macomb on March 13th, 2020. Therefore, be it resolved that under the powers provided by the General Law Village Act, Public Act 3 of 1895, as amended, as Chief Executive Officer and Conservator of the Peace, the President of the village shall continue to exercise all decision-making required for timely actions in an effort to protect the Village of Romeo and its asset in this unprecedented time of emergency. In accordance with Public Act 3 of 1895, as amended, the laws and Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the laws and Constitution of the United States. And be it further resolved that the President will continue to exercise supervision over the affairs of the Village of Romeo and the public property belonging to the village, consistent with the authority granted by Public Act 3 of 1895, as amended, the laws and Constitution of the State of Michigan, including but not limited to Section 10 of 1976 Public Act 390, and the laws and Constitution of the United States. I'm going to sign this on this day of March 16th, 2020. Do we have a motion
I'll make a
to
motion.
adopt the resolution?
I support it.
So we have a motion by Hart, we have support by Seidel. Roll call, please.
Hart,
Yes.
Seidel,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
President Milzon.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so the state of emergency will remain in effect until we can meet next meeting. Whether that's April or whether that's May, it will just make sure that I will be conducting the business of the Village of Romeo on behalf of this council. Any documentation and reports that are, required in your monthly packet, should it not be in April, we'll try and get those to you, so that at least you'll have them for your record.
I would like to do one thing before we adjourn. I would like to ask that we excuse Trustee Fowler's absence. So I would make a motion to excuse Trustee Fowler's absence. I kind of just said it, but
He's not violating any policy.
Yeah, he hasn't violated any policy, so it shouldn't be a problem. And under the circumstances, I certainly would concur with that, but that's her motion.
Just
So
make
do we
it
have
official.
support?
I don't understand the motion.
She wants to excuse Fowler's absence from tonight's meeting so that it doesn't go against his,
And the reason
The
is
absence
because
policy,
of the
right. Right.
virus.
Yes.
That's his reason.
I support it.
okay. So we have a motion by Poznanski, we have support by Bartholomew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Perfect. We have public comments at this time. Is there anybody from the audience that wishes to comment
If no one else is, I wanted to ask.
Could you just go to the podium and give me your name? That'd be great, just so that we can have it in the record. Because I'm sorry, I don't know who you are.
That's okay. I'm Carolyn Songerhausen,
Okay?
and I wanted to know the impetus behind the exploration of village to city.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you give me your address real fast?
253 Morton.
Okay, 253 Morton. So the impetus for doing that was taking a look at the timeliness in an effort to protect the village of Romeo. We had an instance where Supervisor O'Leary chose to propose ballot language last November to tax the south half of the village. I had asked for an exclusion for the incorporated portion of the village from that ballot proposal so that it, in essence, would not split the village in half or put us in a weird taxing position where Bruce Township is assessed a different amount than Washington Township for essentially the same services of Parks and Rec. So that was sort of the catalyst to make the timing request of this. When I investigated the village to city information, most municipalities villages are moving that direction because that gives them greater control. It would eliminate the two taxations. Right now, residents, as you know, pay a township tax and a village tax. So you would be issued one tax bill. Again, the Bruce Township residents pay a different amount than the Washington Township residents for the same services of assessing and elections, which is the service that the townships provide. Since the village of Romeo is positioned to be pretty self-sufficient with the exception of fire for our essential services, which we contract with our neighbor to the north, I felt that there really wasn't any service that the townships couldn't provide or that currently provide that the village couldn't provide to its own benefit. We would hire our own elections clerk, we would hire our own assessing clerk, which would propose the possibility that that assessing would be done based on our values, not necessarily thrown in with either the more rural community that you have from Bruce Township or the more populated community of Washington Township when they look at taxable values, because we bring those in. From my initial findings, it is revenue neutral, if not a small cost savings in taxes to the residents. This will not or should not, the process does not increase your taxes. It does give the village the opportunity or the ability, excuse me, to assess taxes, but we have that ability to do that now. Washington or Bruce Township have the same ability to come in and assess or levy a tax on your tax bill. So I didn't think that was a reason to not pursue that, because increasing taxes is something, a reality that we have, no matter if we're a village or a city. And other than that, we went to a couple of seminars. I've talked to many people who thought we should have done this years ago, and I just thought it was worth forming the exploration committee based, again, on a multi-faceted group to do that process, to say, is this a benefit to our residents? It does require ultimately 2 votes of the residents, a resolution by council to put on some ballot language, but it's voted on by the residents ultimately whether to have the Constitution drafted, and then once the new Constitution for the city is drafted, to actually adopt it. So it's driven by the residents, not by this council. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're welcome to approach her as far as being on that, what is it?
The exploration, yeah, the exploration committee. I had a handout, there's some available in the village hall. I don't know if there were any more over there. It was, again, just one of the handouts, basic information from the Michigan Municipal League, but it positions the benefits and impacts on both sides, and I thought it was pretty, encompassing of all the aspects. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else from the audience that wanted to make any comments? Okay, then I don't have Zach here to give me a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, we have a motion by
Support.
Bartholomew, we have support. I'm sorry, who was that?
Me.
Hart, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
8:25.
8:25.
Everyone be well.